Welcome to the New England Hemophilia Association's Webinar Wednesday series. My name is Rich Pizzillo, and I'm NEHA's Executive Director, and I will be the moderator for tonight's webinar. Being connected with each other is more important than ever. While we may be practicing social distancing, staying healthy means not falling into an unhealthy pattern of social isolation. Our goal is to keep you as formed as possible. That's why we launched this series. For the foreseeable future, NEHA will be hosting an educational forum at 7 p.m. Eastern Time each week called Webinar Wednesday. We're very excited about tonight's webinar as it will help to share coping mechanisms of isolation and physical distancing while using a sibling's perspective. We have a great individual who has become a very close NEHA friend, Dr. Gary McLean, who was recently at our new family retreat, and a panelist of teen siblings and a parent who will share ways this evening about coping when you don't have control over situations, lessons learned over the years, and how to apply these experiences in the midst of the current pandemic. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few webinar points and helpful hints. Tonight's webinar will last approximately 1 hour. We welcome your participation and questions. Your audio will be muted by the system for the duration of the webinar. If you have questions, and we encourage you to ask those questions, please use your GoToWebinar control panel. If you scroll down, there is a question feature. I will pass those questions along to Gary and the panel at the end of the presentation. So again, in your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a question feature that throughout the webinar, you will not interrupt the presentation. You can ask them there. Before I turn it over to Gary, we're gonna have some fun with some polls. So I'm just gonna close this screen here. And you are going to need your phone for this. So if you can grab your phone, we are going to have some fun with some polls. This has become a tradition on these webinars. So we ask you to text 781-412-7971. And this is just a fun snapshot of your favorite ice cream. So what's your favorite ice cream? We have 1 for vanilla, 2 for chocolate, 3 for peanut butter, 4, I like any kind of ice cream, 5, my favorite kind of ice cream is not on here, and ew, I don't like any kind of ice cream. So it looks like peanut butter is winning. I am so glad that I have some peanut butter fans, followed by chocolate and vanilla. Peanut butter is still going strong here. It's like the Kentucky Derby. Let's see who else is going, on here right now. So it looks like peanut butter and chocolate are going for the win. Oh, chocolate just stepped ahead. And ew, I don't like ice cream. 14%. Look at that. So 14% of you do not like ice cream. I like to chat with you after this to see why. The next question that we're going to do is a word bubble. If you can go anywhere right now, use your imagination anywhere right now, where would it be? So you can text 781-412-7971. There's no right or wrong answer for this. We got the beach going here. Just use your imagination of where you would like to be right now. Let's just give it a couple of minutes here and see what others are thinking. Rainbow, mountains, Bolivia, Maine, hole in the wall. That makes me smile. My parents, Florida, Europe, an island. Yeah, Europe, Bolivia, French countryside. Oh man, I could close my eyes right now and picture the French countryside. It sounds great. As you're watching this word bubble, the words that get larger are the ones that have been said multiple times. And right now it looks like beach has definitely won this. So we're going to go on to the next question here. We do this each one too. We just want to do a mental health check-in. How are you doing? For many of us, it's been about a month since social distancing has started, just over a month. So text 1, I'm doing really great. Text 2, I'm doing pretty good. Text 3, I'm doing okay. Text 4, I'm starting to struggle. Text 5, I'm having a really hard time. And text 6, I need support. So it looks like as of right now, I'm doing pretty good at 45%, followed by I'm starting to struggle at 33%. For those that are on this webinar, we hope that what Gary shares and the panel can help you in these very challenging times. So for those that are on the phone, 46% came in at I'm doing pretty good, followed by 4, I'm starting to struggle. So we're going to do one more before we turn it over to Gary. What is one word to describe how you're feeling right now? There's no right or wrong answer for this as well. Just one word on how you are feeling right in this moment. And this will be a word bubble again. So you'll see multiple words come up, and I'll just read them for those on the phone. Hungry, yes, I have not eaten dinner yet either. So hungry is on my mind as well. Stressed, overwhelmed, bored, content, calm, worried, busy. And we'll just let this go for a minute because you will be able to see the larger word hungry is definitely the largest one right here. Proud of my sister. That certainly makes your heart smile. Last one here, and then we'll turn it over to Gary. What's the number one challenge you're facing right now? This is another word cloud. The number one challenge you are facing right now in this moment. We will let this go as, again, there is all of these texts are anonymous. We are not inputting any of this data. So feel free to be extremely candid as we would love to see for those on the webinar as to where we are. And I'll read these out loud as they start coming in. Not enough space at home, uncertainty, not seeing friends, not being able to go anywhere, job security, handling my schoolwork, missing school, maintaining my routine, fake news, motivation, too many people on the mountain bike trails. The reason why we do these polls is to give you an opportunity to know that you're not alone. There's a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion and a lot of emotions that we are feeling right now. And a lot of these words that are popping up on the screen reflect not just what you're feeling, but what many others are feeling. So with that said, I'm just going to, Gary, I'm going to turn this over to you. So I'm going to switch the presenter over to you. And if you have any problems, you can let me know. But without further ado, I'm going to let Gary take over and share some incredible slides that he has, and then we'll introduce our panel. So Gary, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi there, everybody. It's really, really nice to be here tonight. And I'm honored to be here. I'm also in need of human contact, so I'm happy for 2 different reasons. I'm sure, like you, this has been I'll keep it optimistic, a unique and interesting experience to say the least, and I know a very challenging one as well. I just want to so again, thank you for being here and to let you know how really proud and happy and proud I am to have this opportunity. I'm checking. I don't seem to be able to advance the slide.
Gary, why don't you just let me know when you would like the slides to turn? I think that will probably be easiest here.
Fine. Okay. Great. So let's go to the next slide, and then Rich, you may want to do some background here for the next couple of slides.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So NEHA is a member of the Hemophilia Federation of America. Throughout the year at our in-person events, we work extremely close with the Hemophilia Federation of America and the National Hemophilia Foundation to provide resources to the community here in New England. So tonight's webinar is in collaboration with HFA. For those that don't know about HFA, they were founded in 1994, based in Washington, D.C., and provide services and advocacy to many in the community. So these are just some introductory slides about HFA. Their website will be at the end. And then, of course, thanking these incredible companies who support the work that HFA does. So with that said, for those that don't know what Gary looks like, there is your great headshot, Gary, so that everyone could see. And then if you just say next slide, I will advance the slides for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk really at a couple of different levels here. I'm going to start by talking about this situation that we're in, this coronavirus situation, and hopefully give you some ideas that might help you with some coping. And then we're going to move to this amazing panel we have, and we'll talk about coping with COVID, as well as talking about some other issues related to being a parent or a sibling. So we're coming at this from a couple of different levels. So I'll go to the next slide, please. So let's first talk about isolation. We talk about isolation in many different ways, certainly in the bleeding disorders community. We often talk about feelings of isolation. And so I'm going to start out by talking about some of the isolation we're all kind of dealing with right now. So the next slide, please. I think right now we're living in a whole new kind of isolation. I'm sure I'm probably much older than any of you, and I never thought that I would experience anything like this. I'm kind of as lost as many of you may be feeling right now. I think we're just living in uncertainty, and I'm doing all my work with my clients right now over the phone, and I think 4 or 5 times or more a day, so one of the person in either me or my client will say, I'm waiting for that magic date that we can know we go back to normal, whatever that will mean. We don't have that, and so this uncertainty is hard. And I know when you're living with a bleeding disorder, you know what uncertainty is like. You know that every day is something else to be watching out for and to be mindful of. And we're in this constant uncertainty today, and this week, this month, this year, whatever, as well. We're all watching the news and what's the next guideline, or what do we're being asked to isolate in ways we never, as I have on my slide, have never experienced before. This is isolation at a whole new level. I'm experiencing it. I know that you are, and I think we're all feeling kind of a loss of control and kind of helpless. This is being this coronavirus descended upon us, and here we are, and we're not able to stop it at this point. And so we're all feeling helpless. And I know, again, living with a chronic condition like a bleeding disorder, we don't always feel in control. I think the lesson of any kind of chronic condition is that we're not in control, and we're feeling loss of control again. I think in another way as well in our daily life. I also think we're all kind of grieving because our way, kind of our way of life, and our own way of being has really been taken away from us, at least temporarily. The little things that we take advantage of to give us quality of life, stopping in for a cup of coffee, or going out and sitting down, having pizza, going to a movie, all of these things that just give us little bits of quality of life, kind of our own way of living has been taken away, and kind of feeling invisible. We're all sort of hiding out in our houses right now. The streets are empty, and I think we're all feeling it. So I'm going to go through some ideas that I think might help, that I'm encouraging my clients to think about. And so let's go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about coping. And I have maybe, I think, 3 slides of just some tips that I'd like to go through with you that might help you. So let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. One, I would say maintain normal routines and schedules as much as possible. Now, I know that our routines have been snatched away from us, but as much as you can, and I'm doing this myself. I don't have the commute time to my office anymore. I start out on the phone in my kitchen, but I'm still trying to get up at the same time, go through the routine. I still have my coffee at the same time. I would say I think routines give us kind of a sense of purpose and a sense of life going on. And so I think any schedules, routines, doing schoolwork the same time of the day. Anything that we can maintain, I think, is just can be comforting. Doing things you all enjoy, whether it's, and I know we can't necessarily go out and get together with our friends, but things that you can enjoy, hang on to those. I say stay connected to your life. And also, this is a time, a couple of weeks ago, a client said to me, this is time to be creative. and I think it really is. And this is, in some ways, an opportunity. New routines, new activities that, that accommodate the restrictions that we have. New ways to get exercise, new ways to connect with friends. I have clients doing virtual coffee hours with their friends. Everybody makes coffee and they get on Zoom or whatever. And, just new ways to connect and new ways to exercise. And we all find different ways to do our workouts now that we can't go to a gym or connect with friends. Also, I would say just try to focus on the positive. And when my clients fall into this and this is going bad and then, I say, I know, but what's going well? And I think starting out in our conversations with each other, what's going well can help us emphasize what we can be optimistic about. And there are things that are going well in life. Let's try to focus on that. Next slide, please. Thanks, Rich. Limit exposure to the news where you can, whether it's going on for 30 minutes, whether it's focusing only on your governor when they talk about updates, or their whoever the health experts, the government, whatever we can listen to updates so we know what we need to be doing, and then try to limit exposure to other news if you can, because so much is just sensationalized and just makes us feel more bleak. So again, updates, guidelines, and then try to limit to your exposures. Stay on top and then try to limit the rest of it. Stay supported. This is a time to be in touch with other people, to be in touch with friends, in touch with family, maybe family members you haven't talked to, or friends, check in with them. And I think we're all, again, using technology in new ways to reach out and touch. We're Zooming and Skyping and FaceTiming, and a lot of I think some of us are being dragged into the 21st century. So if you're one of them, welcome. I'm kind of in that crowd. I never Zoomed before until a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. Make sure you're getting rest. And if you're having trouble sleeping, try to use some good sleep hygiene. Get off the screen an hour before bed. Try to get relaxed. Try to make sure you're getting rest. Make sure you're eating healthy. I think it's very easy to dig into the comfort food, the sugar and the carbs, and try to make sure that you're eating healthy. It's a really important time to do that. Just one more slide, please. There we go. Create some new family rituals. You might find some different, either it's different games that you might start playing together, or different activities that you might have had to give up some family rituals, like going out for pizza. So maybe you can make a pizza together, for example. Set up space at home to make education a priority. To have spaces where you have a little classroom area, and try to build important things into your life, like school, and even having a little homework area. Be grateful every day. Think of something. I have clients who text each other and text what they're grateful for. Make your home, sorry about that typo, a safe space for sharing emotions. And this is a time, I think, to really talk about how you feel. If you're angry, sad, scared, frustrated, I think home needs to be a place where we can just say how we feel and talk about it. The good emotions and the ones that we think we shouldn't be feeling. Don't call out the positive thinking police. Really, let's be open with each other. And emotions are just emotions. Let them out. Let those emotions out and talk about them. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, now we have our amazing panel, and I think that Rich or Sarah is going to introduce the panel, and then I have a couple rounds of questions.
You got it, Gary. So for the panel, you can see these smiling faces on here. We thought, what better to share different perspectives than the siblings? So often the siblings, whether having a sibling yourself or being a parent of a child affected with a bleeding disorder and then a child that does not, often gets lost in programming and in language. So we wanted to focus tonight in this unusual time that we're in by focusing on a sibling's perspective. So we're going to go down the line. We have Jane Kavanaugh Smith, Sera Ducasse, and Shannon Alley all on the phone, New Englanders that are going to share a little bit from their perspective. We're just going to start, and Jane, I'm going to start with you. We're just going to do a check-in with each person of how are you and your family doing right now?
Thanks, Rich. The Smith family is doing well. When you say kind of how's it going in my house, I think the big news we have to share is that we recently moved to Providence, Rhode Island, after I've lived in Massachusetts my entire life. So I don't mind maybe so much being housebound because I'm in a new house in a new neighborhood, and we're all very excited about that. My husband, Chris, and 24-year-old daughter, Taylor, are here with me in Providence. But Leland, who is 27 and has severe hemophilia A, he actually lives on his own, is still up in Massachusetts. So on one hand, that causes mom a little bit of worry because he's not close by under my wing. But it really gets me thinking that, you know, this is one of those instances where having hemophilia has actually brought many positives to our lives. And I think this is one of them. He, you know, like most of our kids, he's been prepared to really watch out for his own health care and to make smart decisions and to reach out for help when he needs it. And so I feel the training that gave him, you know, that he gained going to NEHA events and such, and learning how to be a good advocate for himself has really put him in a good place during this crisis to be on his own, and mom's a little less worried because of that.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane. And we're happy to have you in Little Rhodey. Sera, if you could go next by introducing yourself and sharing how you and your family is connected to the bleeding disorder community, and then how is it going at home right now?
So my name's Sera. I'm 16 years old. I live in Massachusetts. I'm a sophomore in high school. My brother Dan is 18 and has severe hemophilia A. Our routines right now in quarantine have been changing day to day. We're mostly just going with the flow and trying to deal with everything that comes every day. We are trying to be as productive as we can by getting our schoolwork done. Me and Dan trying to get everything our teachers are giving us done. And me and my family have been going for lots of walks with our dogs and going on hikes and stuff like that. So we've definitely tried to look for positives of what we can do while we're stuck at home and not try to stay away from watching TV all day or spending all of our time in our beds and not really doing the most that we can throughout the day. So yeah, just trying to be productive.
Thank you, Sera. Walks are so important right now. Thank you for sharing. Shannon, you're up next. Introducing yourself, how you're connected to the bleeding disorder community, and how is it going at home?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Shannon Alley. I'm a junior in high school. I'm 16. I live just north of Boston, and my older brother, Liam, has moderate hemophilia, and I'm also a carrier. Initially, when quarantine started, it was kind of like the beginning of summer where you get a break from school work and assignments, and you're just kind of watching Netflix and hanging out. But that kind of got very boring quickly. So, you know, once online classes started, it added a lot more structure where I could do my assignments and all my classwork and, go on calls and stuff like that. And it's very bizarre having everyone back in the house. It's like middle school where no one's friends can drive and just playing video games and your entire life is on your phone. But yeah, we've all kind of been doing puzzles together, and we made a movie watch list for Force Family Fun Nights, trying to keep busy at night and, going on hikes and baking. We did a family Zoom call for my sister's birthday, so just trying to like stay in touch with everyone.
Thank you, Shannon. I know you mentioned baking. For all those that said hungry, you may want to meet up with Shannon after this is all over, and she could probably bake you up a storm over there. So with that said, Gary, I'm going to turn this over to you to ask this panel a series of questions that you have.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. What I'd like to focus now on is kind of daily life in family where you're living with a family member who has a bleeding disorder. So I'm going to kind of go around. I'm going to call it the circle, and I'm going to go through the panel, and I'm going to ask you each to answer, please, a couple of questions, and then I'll have some follow-ups. And so, Jane, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind. Just wondering, I think parents would really like to hear from you on how you're an expert on this at this point. So how you balance, how you have balanced caring for a child with a bleeding disorder while ensuring that your other child feels included. I know it. I think the word there is balance, but how have you done that over the years, please?
Yeah, I think balance is the key word here, right? And I mentioned that my son with hemophilia is 27. My daughter, who is not affected, is 24. So I have both the benefit and honestly some of the regrets that come with hindsight. And it reminds me of a little mantra that I've had throughout the years, and really trying to cut myself a break sometimes and saying, you know what, we all have woulda, coulda, shouldas, things I wish I had done differently, but I just try and remind myself that I made the best decision I could at the time with the information I had, and to kind of let it go and learn from what what I might have wished I've done differently, and try and act on that in the future. But I hope everybody, when they think that way, can give themselves a little break and not sometimes dwell too much on, oh my goodness, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. And in thinking about my daughter Taylor's experience having a brother with hemophilia, I think there were three primary things that came to mind. And one of them is that, I think siblings who have a brother or sister with a bleeding disorder or another serious chronic illness, they want to be the easy one, right? They don't want to add to their parents' worries, and they'll often put their own needs aside. And so my advice for parents would be to really try and keep that in mind, and be attuned to signs that that maybe your sibling is being a little quiet, or is holding something in, because I think that might be a common trait among siblings of affected children, is that they don't want to give their parents anything else to worry about. It also kind of reminds me how smart kids are and what little sponges they are, and they pick up on what they hear even when you don't know that they're listening. And so I think another piece of advice would be just to make sure that you're touching base with the siblings to make sure that they have complete and honest information. Honestly, whether it's about hemophilia or another bleeding disorder or something like COVID, they pick up all this information and it's stirring around in their brains, and they don't always share it, what they're thinking. And we shouldn't assume that they really understand what's going on with their brother or sister's bleeding disorder. We work to educate the affected children. I think we also need to make sure that the siblings have good, honest information and have their questions answered as well, because, they are there all the time picking up on bits and pieces of information. We want to make sure that information is accurate and age appropriate. And then I think maybe the last thing I would touch on is, as we all know, and a lot of this is common sense, and I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. And it's hard in the busyness of our daily lives to remember what it is we wish we want to do or wish we had done. I think all kids, particularly when they're younger, are really looking for and expecting fairness and, that word balance. And kids will often equate the amount of time that parents spend with them is love, right? If she spends more time with him, she must love him more. And of course, we know that's not true, but when there are medical needs involved, sometimes we do have to give time and attention to the child that has the bleeding disorder. And we need to remind ourselves to try and balance that with the siblings as well. A couple of things that that we did is that we used to have Taylor Tuesdays, and that was Taylor's day. Leland was not involved; he was at school. She was around a little bit more, and that was her day to get to choose activities, something special, whatever it was, that was all about her. And so we still very much look back with fondness about Taylor Tuesdays. Another one really came out of a big aha moment I had, and I've shared this story before. It may sound familiar to some of them, but it was maybe an 8-year-old Taylor one day in the kitchen when there was a lot of frantic stuff going on around Leland, just stopping and saying, "We live in the United States of Leland." And of course that broke my heart, but it really kind of shook me with an awareness of, oh my gosh, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing this better. And I need to be reminded of her needs. Leland's needs were very obvious. Her needs a little less so. And so I decided I needed a visual cue. And so I put a special photo on the refrigerator. And it looked like many of the other photos and magnets, all the other stuff you might collect on your refrigerator. But I knew that that picture was there for a reason. And that reason is it was my visual cue to take a minute and stop and think about our Taylor's needs being met. And hopefully the answer could be yes in that moment, but maybe they weren't. And I would do a little self-check and try and make sure that I did something special for her and gave her the attention that her brother would get just because he had the chronic illness and she did not. So I think a little visual cue for me was a good reminder to put Taylor's needs first sometimes. And then the third thing we do was actually a suggestion from Taylor, and it might be helpful for you. And again, she was a younger girl, but I think it could still work well into teen years, is that she put a little cardboard mailbox on her bedroom door. And again, it was a visual cue because we know what we want to do, but we just need to be reminded sometimes. And I would see that little mailbox on her door and know to slide in a little note for her. And that little small gesture, I think, makes a difference. So, nothing earth shattering. I guess I would just sum it up to say that it's common sense. We need to cut ourselves some slack, give ourselves a pat on the back when we do it well, and just find the tools that will help us remember what it is, we know in our heart that we really want to do.
That's really great. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. That's a lot of really great wisdom there. I really love the way you started out when you said give yourself a break. And I so often say that to my clients, that we make the best decisions we can at the time. And we look back and we have 20/20 vision, but at the time we have only so much information and experience, and we do the best we can. I think that's such great advice for parents. You're figuring this out as you go along, and you're not always going to be perfect. I just love the idea of Taylor Tuesdays and the visual cue that that you are really trying to be self-aware and remind yourself that you wanted to make sure that Taylor was included also. I think that's really just really great advice. I'm guessing that she responded to that. Could you, was she, did she respond to that? Did you feel that it was having an impact?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, for those who know our family, we've been very involved with NEHA for many years, and Taylor was just as involved. And we would give her the option. She didn't necessarily have to come to everything. We could find a fun alternative for her with families or friends. But she very much felt that this was part of her life, an important part, and this is her community too. And I think maybe I don't want to say culmination, she's only 24, but the culmination of that is that she was able to get a job at Hole in the Wall gang camp. And I think what she learned as a sibling just gave her a level of empathy and understanding and perspective that really equipped her well to take on a role as a counselor and a leader at Hole in the Wall gang camp. So I, as a mom, am so appreciative of how this community really does serve the whole family. And so even if mom and dad were maybe slipping up here and there, we knew that we had this whole larger NEHA family behind us to help raise our kids along with us. So I will forever be indebted to the community for that.
That's great, and I think involving you're involving Taylor in the information and participating in events, I think is another way to your kids bond with each other and help everybody to be connected with each other around the bleeding disorder as well. I mean, I think that's amazing. It's really beautiful. I love that. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And I agree. I think this organization is just so amazing at providing families opportunities to be together as a family and to work together, which I think is it's just so important. So thank you very much. Thank you. Sarah, I'm going to ask you a question. And when have you ever felt left out in any way? I'm going to ask you a couple of different questions, but just wondering, have you ever felt left out in any way when for example, when your sibling had a bleed or having some medical issues? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, so there definitely has been times when I have felt left out when my brother had a bleed or when he got a certain opportunity for things that I didn't because I don't have a bleeding disorder, which made me feel pretty isolated, like how we're all feeling right now.
Yeah.
Like when my brother was younger, he definitely got more severe bleeds than he does now. So most of the attention of my parents were on him, which I didn't understand as much when I was younger because I didn't fully understand what was going on. But now when he does get bleeds, I understand why he needs all the attention because he needs to heal and what's going on with him on the inside. And I don't feel as left out anymore because my parents and the NEHA community has shown me that we all are experiencing similar things and it's not just me going through this, and that we just have to find ways to deal with it differently than anyone else. And definitely the community has helped with that.
Great, that's great. When your brother did have a bleed, did your parents explain what was going on, or did you feel they wanted to kind of protect you from that?
They definitely explained what was going on, and I could see what was going on because the bleeds were definitely you could see them. But when I was younger, I didn't understand what was going on, what they were explaining to me fully. Like I had an idea of it, but that idea has definitely changed as I've gotten older.
Got it. Yeah. I'm just curious. Did you and your sibling go to the same school?
Yeah, he is 2 grades above me, so we've been going to the same school all the time. Right now, we actually have a couple classes together in high school, which is kind of a weird thing.
Oh, interesting. And do you does anything ever come up at school with kids asking questions or anything coming up with your brother that needing help at school?
Yeah, in middle school, there was a couple times when he had to come to school in like on crutches or he had like a brace on, and people just thought that definitely meant that he broke a bone and just assumed that he broke a bone, but not necessarily. It meant that he got a bleed. So it was hard to explain to my friends because they're like, "Oh, what happened to Dan? Did he break another bone? What happened?" And I would have to explain, "Oh no, it's a bleed." And then I have to go through, "Oh, what's a bleed? What's hemophilia?" and have to explain to the best I can what it was. And so definitely going through that was very different.
Yes, yes, I'm sure. Yeah, was that do you ever get tired of having to be the patient educator, or do you kind of enjoy that role?
There are times when I don't enjoy it, and there's times when I do. Last year, we actually went over hemophilia in our biology class, so it was
Oh,
kind of cool to share like that my brother had it, and I'm a carrier of it, and how it is, and people were kind of fascinated that it wasn't like it's a rare disease, but someone they knew is connected to it. So that's a time when I do like talking about it because I can help raise awareness for it.
yeah, absolutely. That's great. Great. Yeah, that's really again a way for you to participate in supporting your brother, which is really wonderful. Do you have any shared kind of activities that you do at home, or any family kind of bonding rituals that you would want to share with us? Do you have any special nights at home or anything that you, or special events that you share?
Me and my family, like especially during this quarantine, we every night we get together, and me and my dad have been switching every night, picking a movie and watching that movie together and spending that time together. And even on a regular day basis, we there's always that time during the day that we all somehow group into one room, whether it's the kitchen or the family room, and we just talk about random things and laugh about stuff and just have those moments that weren't planned, but definitely meant a lot.
That's great. Yeah, excellent. That's great. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Um, and I'm going to go on to Shannon, please. And I'm just wondering, I'm going to ask you some similar questions that I asked Sarah, if that's okay. I'd like to start out with first, has there ever been a time when you felt kind of left out, um, kind of as an outsider when your sibling had a bleed or a medical event?
Yeah, so a lot of my brother's bigger bleeds were when we were all younger. So my parents would kind of take my sister and I out of the equation and we would kind of go off, do our separate thing. Um, and I have memories of like his some of his more major bleeds. Like he had this hip bleed when I was like really young, like before kindergarten, and he was having like trouble walking around the house and like stuff like that. I remember I was always included. I could help him, and like I always aided him in however he needed me to help him with. But when it came to like more like day-to-day stuff with it, I feel like it was just kind of like not talked about with me because I was obviously younger, and as I got older, I watched him infuse and I was like very much included in that. So I think during like bigger events, more like camp and things like that, I felt very included in there with sibling sessions. And like when I was younger, we were called like super sibs, and I'd bring a trophy home. But
Uh,
like, yeah, I think I've felt very included in most stuff. And, obviously when I was younger, I wasn't making a super big effort to understand the specifics of everything. And so as I got older, I learned more and I felt more like intertwined with the whole thing. And it was, very, it was a big learning experience as I got older to like see what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think like being left out, it was kind of just more like my parents didn't want us to be worried about him or anything if there was something huge going on. I don't think that there was a ton of that.
Okay, great. So it sounds like your parents kind of developmentally thought maybe they should protect you, and then over time you got more involved in your brother's bleeding disorder and supporting him. Is that right?
Yeah, because you know, as when you're younger, you don't really think about that as much, and you're kind of just being a kid. So, but as I got older, I eventually asked more questions, and I was listening to more stuff that people were saying at events, and I was kind of learning more about it.
Great. Yeah. Now, did your parents kind of facilitate the learning, or was that something you kind of picked up on your own, or some of both?
I think most of the learning was at like different events that we went to that were hosted by NIHA. And when speakers would come in and stuff like that, I learned a lot during those. But also just basic stuff in school about like how it's kind of passed on, because there have been units in like biology and I'm taking genetics right now. So kind of how that works, like the very technical stuff of it, I've kind of learned through school too.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. And that which kind of leads me to my question I wanted to ask. Do you do you do your own patient education at school with other kids? Is that ever a role that you're kind of finding yourself in?
Yeah, so I think some of my closer friends, definitely I've told them a lot over the years, because it tends to like you listen and then like you'll forget by the next time it's mentioned. It kind of has to be repeated. Um but yeah, I think I have told like tried to educate to the best of my abilities if people ask questions or if it comes up in a conversation. Um because it is like, during times where I might be having trouble with the whole like thing, or, this past year when I found out I was a carrier, then I have to, explain the whole thing so I can talk to my friends about it and help cope with that. Like, um, but educating, I find to be, I like doing it because I like to talk about, stuff like that. I find it's interesting, and I a lot of my friends like to educate themselves on stuff like that too. We're all science geeks.
Right, right. That's great. I'm guessing for all three of you, it must be empowering in a way to have this knowledge and to be able to share it and to support your child or your sibling. I think it's really great. And I always tell my clients, information is power, and and certainly the three of you really embody that with what you've learned and what you're able to share with other people. Shannon, do you ever worry? Are there times where you worry about your brother?
I think when I was younger, I worried a lot more, but as we both got older, like I realized, oh, he's like older than me and he's kind of got it under control. He's living his life and he's being, safe about everything, like infusing when he needs to, all that kind of stuff. So I think the worry kind of went away when I grasped the reality of he's a responsible person somewhat.
Right, right. Okay, that's great. Yeah, yeah. Sarah, thank you. Thanks a lot. That was great, Shannon. Sarah, do you worry about your brother?
Yeah, the same as Shannon, when we were younger, seeing my mom have to infuse him before he was taught to definitely was confusing as a young child to like see your mom stick a needle into your brother's arm like every couple of days. So I definitely had concern with that. And when he did have those pretty severe bleeds that you could see all the bruising on and him not able to move around and do as much and take care of him, I was definitely concerned. But now that we're older, he wears his medical alert, he's infusing himself every couple of days. So I trust him more to take care of himself, especially now that he's 18 and he's technically an adult now. I feel like he can take care of himself more, which puts me more at ease.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm guessing again, just watching and seeing his experience over time and observing him taking care of himself probably helps for you, I would guess.
Yes,
And
definitely.
yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. And Jane, I would guess it must be similar for you. Over time, you've experienced. You see that he's managing himself.
Yes, yeah, but you know what? Once a mom, always a mom, right? I mean, just because he's 27 doesn't mean I don't worry anymore. That will never end. But I do feel that with you know, with the help of this community, I always go back to that he is well prepared for his future. And just given where he is at 27, you know, I probably worry about other things more so than his health, as far, you know, worry about jobs and insurance and getting married and all those things that come in adulthood. So it doesn't go away, but you know, again, I go back to he's well prepared. So I think we're in good shape. But yeah, parents always worry. That never stops.
Well, I was just thinking, Jane, as you were talking, that I met you a few years ago when Leland was thinking about college. So I'm happy to hear he's 27 and doing his own thing. That's wonderful. And I'm sure due to the great support he's had from his parents. So that's great. It's wonderful, and from his family, siblings, his sister. I just have one last question that I was going to kind of weave through, and I'll start with Shannon. Let's say that a friend of yours from school came up to you and said, I just found out my little brother has a bleeding disorder. I know you have a brother in the same situation. Where do I start? What are some just a few words of advice you might give someone who says, where do I start? It's my brother.
Yeah. So, I think just like the number one thing is just like be calm about it and like don't make it this huge hectic thing that's like a freaky, because that'll freak everyone out. I think just like staying calm and like getting educated and like knowing what's going on, so it's not just this big like what happens now. And just kind of knowing what's, being prepared for what will happen, what's going to happen, and just staying, open-minded, and obviously I think getting into a community like this community is very like, opening with wide arms, and you can just kind of walk into it and you walk into a family. So I think kind of getting into a community where you can talk about it and stuff like that too is definitely helpful.
That's great. Good advice. Thank you. Thanks very much. Sarah, what about you? A friend comes up to you and says, just found out about my little brother. Where do I start?
I would tell them to look up information, but with an open mind, and try to do it with your family so you can all talk about it. I would also say to, like Shannon said, find a community like this, because it's definitely a huge help, and it's a great place to fall back on when you need help. There's places like this no matter where you go. Like my aunt, she lives in Georgia, and her son has hemophilia, and they have a community just like ours that helps her through it, because she didn't really understand either what was happening. But obviously she had my mom to help. So I definitely recommend finding a community, finding people that are going through or have advice that would help with this, and just talking to them and seeing what they did and what they think can help you.
That's great advice. Good. Thank you very much. I keep thinking again, something I always tell my clients, information is power, but support is power also, and it's really important to be part of our community. So thank you, Shannon and Sarah, thanks for that. And Jane, if a parent came up to you, and I know you've given us some advice already, but the parent said, Jane, where do I start? I see a big hill, big mountain in front of me. What's my starting point? What would you say, please?
Well, I think Shannon and Sarah have already said how important this community has been in their families, and I've expressed in mine. So for sure, my number one recommendation would be to reach out and find your local community. You know, you're likely not going to meet somebody with hemophilia in town or neighborhood or church or whatever your normal circles are. So really try and connect with your local chapter to to get educated, but early on be careful and not do too many Google searches and find out more information than you might be ready to hear. Right off the bat, is that information is good, but sometimes too much is too much depending on where you are in your experience and your learning curve. And lastly, social media is wonderful and can offer lots of support, but for the real questions about medical, bounce it off your friends on social media, but please bring the important questions to your doctors. And they should be really the ones who are helping you make decisions on care.
Very good point. Thank you. Thanks for all that. I just have a couple just closing slides, but Rich, do we have any questions or anything else we need to handle?
I have a couple of questions that came in. Do you want to answer those, and then we can go over this one slide? I know we're past 8 o'clock. We had a couple of technical issues that delayed it. So if you're still on, bear with us a couple of more minutes here. These are great questions. Is that okay, Gary, in the panel, that if we ask the questions, and then maybe you can go and close us out? Does that sound like a good plan?
Totally. That's great.
Okay, great. So this question is for Sarah and or Shannon. So whoever wants to take it, or if you both do. My daughter is often quiet when she feels alone or overwhelmed, but she doesn't want to talk about any issues with me. What's the best way to approach you if you're feeling isolated? I don't want to push her away, but I also want her to know that I'm there for her.
I would recommend just letting her know that you're there for her, and I'm sure she knows that you're there for her. And for me, with all my feelings of being isolated, I tried to deal with it on my own because I didn't want to put more stress on my parents. So she could also be going through that. So I would just try to be there for, like, if she needs and wants to open up, I'd be there for her, but also let her go through what she has to go through for her to figure it out herself too, because for me that was also a big help, finding ways that I can deal with it myself too.
Yeah, I think that the same for me, where it's kind of like just make it known that there is support that is offered, even if, it's been known, just like that. It's just reiterate that, oh, I'm here if you need me, and like we can talk, because even if it's like not immediately, like eventually, someone's going to have to talk about it, and it is very helpful when the time does come. So I think just like making it known that like this is like a safe spot to talk about it, like there's going to be no judgment, and like I'm here if you need me.
That's great about just being there, just saying I'm here. That's
fantastic advice. Absolutely. Gary, this one is for you. Let me just summarize here. As a mental health professional, what long-term issues do you foresee as a result of COVID-19, not just for the bleeding disorder community, but for all of us?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we're all wondering what is life going to be like when we go back, and I think that we'll all have changes that will impact us in some way, new habits that we've that we've developed, and new ways of doing things, new uses of technology. So I think there'll be some potential, benefits that we'll have many more tools at hand and different ways of doing things. But I do think that we're all being traumatized right now. I do, and I think that for a long time we're going to be worried about what's next. We're going to have that dark cloud hanging over our head for a long time. When we hear about an illness or a flu, I think we're going to be that much more hyper vigilant and that much more fearful. Hyper vigilant meaning we're watching ourselves and worried. I think it's going to be a long time before we really feel comfortable being around a lot of other people, sitting in a movie theater. And I just think this is going to hang over our head for a while. The sense of we've realized bad things really can happen, and now I think we're going to be more cautious and more reactive when we hear, especially things related to the flu and illnesses. I think it's going to hang with us for a while. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, sure.
Jane, this question came in for you. I love your suggestion for Taylor Tuesday. Thank you. Any tips for keeping siblings and or kids involved with the community as they get older? Any advice that you can give?
I think trying to find ways, and if it doesn't already exist, I mean, we all know how fortunate we are to have NEHA and just the breadth of programs and opportunities you offer our New England community. But I think just really looking for what those opportunities are, honestly, whether they're within bleeding disorders or outside. It's kind of, what is her passion? I shouldn't assume because it's important to Leland, or I think it'd be a great experience to go to camp or to, be on a panel or do, really letting them make the decisions for themselves. And it may be something that's, within the world of bleeding disorders, and it may not. So just really finding out and focusing on their own unique interests and passions. And then, I'll tell you, I mean, I'll be honest, right now, Taylor's got her own thing going on. She's a young 24-year-old professional businesswoman, and she's not as interested or engaged with the community. And that's okay, to just kind of allow them to pursue their own thing, and not necessarily see it as a bad thing. I know how much she loves you all, and how much she values this community. It's just not really her thing right now, and maybe she'll come back later. And one thing I think we as a community honestly are a little bit challenged with is kind of what is the role of adult siblings. There's a lot of passion and experience and wisdom there that we shouldn't necessarily lose just because they age out or they get a little bit older. So maybe this isn't answering the question, kind of giving this is what we need here in this house, is like, what is the role for the adult sibling in the community? Because I think there's a lot there that if they want to continue to be involved, we should try and find ways. So I'm so proud of Sera and Shannon. I've known them since they were little girls, and they've just done a phenomenal job tonight. So they've found their way to contribute and be involved. And so before we run out of time, I just wanted to say how proud I am of them.
It's great. Very nice.
And to echo that, absolutely. And that is actually a great dovetail. Gary, this is the last question. And it's not really a question, it's a comment. Someone just listed a bunch of things that were shared and just gave a kudos to all three of you, and especially the teenagers, for ideas that you have experienced as an isolated, as you have grown up and maybe have felt isolated, not through COVID-19, but having a bleeding disorder. So they just mentioned the Taylor Tuesday, the cardboard box, mailbox, the cooking and the hiking and the movie nights as a thank you of ideas that they're going to apply to their own family during this unique time. So it was less of a question and more of a thank you from someone that's listening to all three of you, but especially the teenagers, for sharing some routine that has worked and things that you're doing now. So Gary, I'll turn it over to you to wrap up.
Oh, great, thank you. I just want to say also for all three of you, Jane, Sarah, Shannon, just really great. So nice to work with you. I really enjoyed it. So thank you all of you. Great. Just very quickly, overall concerns, which I think we've kind of covered tonight, but there can be some guilt about not having not having the bleeding disorder themselves, anxiety about becoming sick, especially I think for small children that don't necessarily understand what's going on. I think worries that they might have done something to cause a bleed. Did I bump into my brother? Did I bang into them? As we talked about, some jealousy or feeling out like an outsider. Anger, I think it's always important to share responsibility, that everybody has chores that are that they're able to do, that everybody feels like they're contributing. It's not just you have to work like I do, but we're all contributing. We're all a family together. We're all a team. I think guilt when we're resenting some of the responsibility that goes along with being a sibling, maybe embarrassed, when people might stare if the sibling is on crutches or something, feeling somewhat isolated if the sibling is needing to get a lot of attention because of medical issues. Let's go on to the next slide, please. I think just in terms of isolation, I'm going to go through this quickly. Siblings may not want to bother parents with their additional concerns, and I think Jane addressed that early on. It may be difficult to talk to friends because they don't understand. Again, this is where the learning to be a patient educator, I think, comes in, and I think siblings often learn to use this as an opportunity to be a teacher and to be an advocate for their sibling, which I think is really great. And again, if a sibling needs a lot of extra attention, if there's a medical issue going on, then the sibling that doesn't have a bleeding disorder again can feel kind of left out. So again, different kinds of isolation. Next slide, please. So I would say for parents and to watch out for is anxiety, acting out, meaning misbehaving or blowing up, getting angry, breaking something, breaking the rules, especially losing interest in friends, becoming isolated, trouble sleeping, headaches, difficulty concentrating, withdrawal, self-isolation. These could be signs of feeling like an outsider. It can be signs of anxiety, signs of depression, stress, which I think are good things for parents to be watching out for really in all of their children, but certainly the watching for this in the siblings as well. Things to watch out for. Then the last slide. Great. I want to thank you. I'm so honored to have had this opportunity, and I really appreciate it so much. And again, thanks for Rich and Sarah. Thanks for the panelists, and again, thank you so much. And take really good care of yourselves. Stay really safe.
Gary, thank you so much for what you are doing for the community and for taking time this evening and providing so many tips and guidance for all of us. And to our panel, Jane, Sarah, and Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. There are so many elements as we talk about isolation that they're not uncommon for those with the bleeding disorder, that taking some of these best practices that you shared tonight in your experiences for all of us to think about, whether you have a sibling, whether you're a child, whether you're a healthcare provider. These are all things that we can apply to our everyday lives during this very unusual time. So with that said, thank you to you. You all are listening, and this is have stayed on this webinar, and we can't thank you enough for the support that you give to NEHA. This is our third webinar Wednesday. We hope that you can join next week. We will be posting that topic on our webpage, and all of you will be receiving an email shortly that will have this recording and also have a link to register for the next webinar Wednesday. It's a tongue twister there, a topic, which is next week at 7 p.m. So again, we hope that you have a great rest of your week. And thank you again to Gary and the panel who shared some incredible insights tonight. Stay safe, be well, and we look forward to talking to you next week at 7 o'clock. Take care, everyone.